Oh, G Funky Boxing. If you guys are new to the channel, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. Being joined by some friends of ours, some dear friends of ours tonight. My main man from Warwick Radio Network, Big Joseph Haran. Let's give him a hand. How you doing, buddy?
Well, brother, all I can say is thank you for the Dave Weckl.
Oh, yes.
And once again, this is just between G and I. And let me tell you, music always soothes the savage beast, right? So I am in a great mood now, G Funky. Thank you, my friend.
I love it. And of course, the one, the only, Big Dog Lukey. Let's give him a hand as well. How you doing, my friend?
No, I'm excited to talk some boxing, and I'm sure there's some people out there that are really excited to get some boxing talk. So let's give them what they need.
Absolutely, man. And you know what, Luke? This show wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for our phone call that we had a few days ago when we were talking about boxing and we talked about this weekend. And
was I sober?
Yeah.
Okay.
Woo!
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you what, brother, by necessity, I've been sober for over a week now. How do you like that, guys?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. But
Woo!
I sure hope you were sober, Luke, because you were driving. So
yeah, I think it was also the AM. So I think that there'd be a double whammy if I was.
Well, let me tell you, guys, clean living is very underrated. It's a beautiful thing, guys. God bless all of you.
Yes,
Woo!
sir. But Lukey and I were talking a little bit about this fight between El Vaquero Navarrete and Oscar Valdez. And he asked me the question, man. And I think this is a tremendous question where he said, you know, Valdez, when he fought Lecran Burchelt a few years ago, he was looking for that Mexican rivalry like Marquez Vasquez. And of course, we all know Morales Barrera. All right. Some of the greatest rivalries you could have in boxing, especially two Mexicanos going at it. But he said, could this be that Mexican rivalry if it turns into a great fight, you know, and the fans want to see it again? Could this be the one, man? And we're going to talk about that tonight. Also, we're going to touch briefly on a few other topics that I have here on the show. We see Robert Helenius coming off of a fight he just had, literally.
AKA Lukey Boxing. Yes.
I wish, bro. He's like 6'9". I'd be like probably, you know, I'd be like really intimidating, you know.
You look like Robert Helenius' little brother.
I think little is the right word. But I mean, Robert, for those that are unaware, Robert Helenius fought
inside,
in front of
brother. Inside. Yes.
But he fought in front of the Excalibur Castle in Finland.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And now he's going. I hope to God Anthony Joshua doesn't have a hard fight. That would be like the worst thing ever if this is like a 116, 112 Joshua fight.
No. In my opinion, brother, and once again, we'll talk about this in just a bit. This isn't the primary subject, right? The primary topic.
No.
But I will say this. I love this fight. I love this. This, in my opinion, the Dillian White Anthony Joshua fight just got bumped up to first class, and I'll explain why later.
I agree, man. I'm glad that Helenius stepped in to take this fight, and also we're going to touch on the rumors out there that they are in the works of making a David El Bandera Roja Benavidez fight versus Demetrius Andrade. We'll talk about that as well. So, but real quickly, man, since we were talking about the fight between Joshua and now Helenius, no Dillian White, which I am very happy because I did not want to see that fight again. I am through with Dillian White. I don't think I ever want to see the guy in the ring again. But Helenius, tough guy, good counterpuncher, great timing. You know, he's a big heavyweight. Not the greatest chin, but that's all right. He's going to come to fight. We all know that. He's going to give Joshua some work. So I'll start off with you, my man, Luke. What are your thoughts, man? Helenius stepping in.
I mean, the word is serviceable. It's a serviceable opponent. I hope to the love of God that Helenius does not catch Joshua in the first 3 rounds. because Joshua's, like I've always said, he can't turn offense into defense, defense into offense. He's very timid after the two Usyk fights. I don't see Joshua as like a really elite heavyweight. I see him as someone that's been like marketed really well, had a lot of potential, but has kind of been like a head case who runs his own camps. Not really like super interested, to be honest. I hope it's not one of those grab my phone and I'm gonna tune in. It's better than Dillian White, because Dillian White, I don't think anyone's interested to see him fight anymore, like for multiple reasons. But
from a commercial perspective in the UK, this is a huge hit. Let's make no mistake about this. That's the only reason why Dillian White was the prime candidate from a commercial perspective. Because let's just face it, he is towards the clubhouse, not just back nine, but he is towards the clubhouse. So in my opinion, Lukey, this is an upgrade, brother. And once again, a lot of people, just going by perception, they're looking at the Deontay Wilder fight. They're thinking, oh, dude, this guy's got no chin and this not. Dude, when you consider styles, and once again, I'm going to quote Emmanuel Stewart. Well, records, resumes, and trinkets are for fans, writers, and network executives who don't quite understand what they're looking at in the ring. and that applies to this, guys. Once again, styles make fights. This is a gentleman who's 6'8". He's taller than Joshua. So everything that we've been wanting to see from Anthony Joshua since his, merger with Derek James, he's going to force that out of him. Now, once again, Anthony Joshua can't just sit in the pocket, just sit back and wait for a smaller opponent to come to him. No, he's going to have to move forward. Just sit. Okay, so he's going to have to move forward. What the hell was that? I heard my voice back at me.
That was my mistake, guys. Sorry about that.
No, okay. Very good. So once again, he's going to have to be the effective aggressor in this fight. Hallelujah. This is what we've been wanting. Like this, we're going to see a more aggressive-minded Anthony Joshua. This is what we wanted to see against Jermaine Franklin. We didn't see it. Okay, and if he sits back in the pocket, he might be picked apart with the jab. He's going to have to become the effective aggressor in this matchup. Hallelujah. This is what we want to see, and this is a much better litmus test going into a dangerous fight with Deontay Wilder. Keep in mind, Robert Helenius, 6'8", counterpuncher, great timing, not great chin, but boy, he's got plenty of crack in his shot. I love this fight. And once again, if Anthony Joshua cannot get past Robert Helenius, then there was no intrigue in Deontay Wilder. Let's just face it, guys. I will say this, though, before I let you go and get your thoughts, G-Funky. I spoke to Ronnie Shields as well as James Gogi early this morning. And keep in mind, Ronnie Shields is in London right now. He's got Filip Brgovic, right, who's going to be in the co-main event against the Aussie McKenna, right? He was hoping to get this assignment. And he said, look, Anthony Joshua, and I'm going to recite and regurgitate what Lukey said, very insightful. And he always has a great eye for this stuff, right? He said, you know what? He's not the guy he used to be. Okay, let's just face it. He's not the hungry young heavyweight he used to be. He almost seems he's doing this out of necessity. If he still had that thirst, that hunger, that appetite for, the heavyweight, everything that the heavyweight division had to offer, guess what? He'd be fighting Philip right now. Okay, look at a 38-year-old Lennox Lewis. Okay, when Kirk Johnson hurt his shoulder, what happened? HBO wanted the Vitaly Klitschko fight instead, and he said, bring it on. Where do I sign? Okay? Anthony Joshua didn't say that. Okay? This is a guy who, there's a big question whether or not he still wants to do this at the highest level. Is he merely wanting to cash out in a big payday with skills challenge opposite Deontay Wilder, win or lose.
Yeah, he's got some options, man, for sure. You know, because he's a big name, he's a big draw over there in the UK. So, I mean, he's still got a couple big paydays, I think, in him. Even if disaster strikes here on this last minute, and we all know what happened the last time he had a last minute replacement was Andy Ruiz.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's going to happen here, but let's say what's up to everybody in the chat. My man Demetrio G is here. And he says, shouldn't his name be El Bandera Roja? yeah, man. The GOAT here says he's taking Helenius by KO. And Teach is here. And he says, salute the G Funky in the panel. Thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to War Week Radio and to Lukey Boxing here on YouTube.
Yes, sir. Lukey Boxing.
Yeah, so Luke, give us some more thoughts, man. If there's anything else you want to talk about this last minute.
Look, I just need to say what I feel is truth, and then I'll be done. Is Joshua's always been a work in progress, right? He's always been a guy who looks the part. He looks like a G.I. Joe, and he has an Olympic medal, and the fans liked him, and the girls think he's sexy, and he's a body guy, right? And I think we're clamoring for a heavyweight that has this great physique, right? Because the two best heavyweights right now are Fury and Usyk, and I don't think every single girl, if they saw him in a swimsuit in whatever beach, would be like, man, those are some sexy. Like, they might think that, but I think for what the average fan is, they're looking for the Mike Tyson. They're looking for the buff guy, right? So they look at Anthony Joshua. It's this big buff guy, Olympic gold medal, great pedigree, marketed really well. But I think the only thing that's interesting to me about this fight, because I think Usyk kind of took his confidence as a fighter. Like Ruiz put a shadow of a doubt. Joseph Parker really troubled him with a jab, which I think created the hesitation, along with him not being able to transition offense, defense to offense. Now we're just kind of looking at what is he in the sport for? He's really rich. Does legacy matter? And I think that's the underrated thing about Joshua is I think he really does think his legacy matters, and he wants his legacy to matter. The problem is his talent doesn't match the legacy component. And I think he's looking at his promoters like, am I really not this good? Because he's spending his 2023 fighting Jermaine Franklin, a top 15 heavyweight. And then it was Dillian White, a fan favorite, but a guy who's essentially a retired fighter who's coming out of retirement to fight him. So, I mean, you can tell that there's not a lot of confidence in him. He's fighting a guy Wilder knocked out in one round. He should knock this guy out. But if he doesn't knock him out, I mean, this really kind of tells us where Joshua's at. But like oftentimes you look at the matchmaking, it tells you where a fighter's at. They're not going to put him in with Filip Hrgovic because Hrgovic has a very good chance of beating Joshua. You can't risk him in with a top 10 heavyweight at this point anymore. You have to try to get him into these big fights and whatever happens.
Then what's the intrigue? What's the intrigue in a fight with Deontay Wilder?
I mean, I don't see any intrigue other than I go to my phone and I see a viral video of Joshua getting knocked out. Like that's like what I see the fight.
Uh-oh.
At best, some issues with taking big shots, and at worst, an ability to be fine not continuing in a fight. Going into arguably maybe the biggest puncher, at least in modern boxing history, to go in with the biggest puncher in the sport and have issues about maybe your commitment when the going gets rough, it's a big ask to believe he'll either land a big shot or outbox that guy. You're fighting Thor's hammer.
Yeah. Yeah, Wilder's got that kind of power. One shot can turn the lights out. That's for sure, man. And I mean, geez, how do I follow that up, man? These two guys right here really just laid it all out for all of you guys there. And this is exactly why you need to subscribe to these channels.
I will say this, G. I will say this, G. Give your thoughts on Ronnie Shields' comments that, look, if this guy were the man of the heavyweight division, if he truly believed it, then, yeah, he would be facing Filip Hrgovic in the main event this Saturday. He's
or
in the
Martin
event
Bacoli,
anyway.
like Martin Bacoli or Frank Sanchez, who can't get a fight.
No. I'm just talking about someone who's already on the card, someone who's been training.
But I'm saying, like, let's say, like,
course.
okay, Frank Sanchez is just like Maybe he's not even in camp. Bring him over,
From a promotional perspective, I can tell you exactly why Frank Sanchez wouldn't get the nod. And once again, Demetrius Salita, a dear friend of mine, a great guy, great promoter. He wanted Otto Wallin to get the assignment last minute.
Not a chance.
And once again, why wouldn't you choose Otto Wallin? Well, because he's a southpaw, and he's a guy you're not going to look good against. He moves around the ring extremely well. He's a southpaw, and he's a game guy with a high ring IQ. Same thing with Frank Sanchez. That's the reason why you wouldn't get the assignment. Now, once again, Robert Helenius, he's the perfect guy. He's a guy who's going to give you rounds, hopefully. He's a guy who's taller than you. He's got some crack in his shot. He's got some experience, right? He's got a great jab. And if you knock him out, okay, you're going to have to do it by being the aggressor. In this matchup, Anthony Joshua is a smaller guy. This is win-win. This is an upgrade from Dillian Whyte. This is a great fight. And once again, if you were hoping, right, just to get someone like Dillian Whyte, someone just to like Derek Chisora, someone who's going to just be a live body in the ring who can actually draw. Okay.
Yeah.
So they want to see where the hell Anthony Joshua is currently. And guess what? I fucking love it. Pardon my French. I love it. I love this. Honestly, I absolutely love this. This is an upgrade. We just went from a Chevy Malibu to a Lincoln Town Car, and I love it.
It's a better matchup than Dillian Whyte. I was like, Jesus, this is a waste of time rematch if there ever was one.
Waste of time
with Dillian Whyte. So hopefully he's gone for good and we don't have to worry about him anymore. And yeah, look, I do think Helenius is a better opponent, even coming off of a fight he just had recently. I do think he would give Joshua a better fight than Dillian Whyte would. That's for sure.
So G Funky. Okay, now the question still is there, right? You haven't answered it yet. Is Anthony Joshua still interested in being the man of the heavyweight division? Or is he just merely doing this for a paycheck? Your thoughts?
That's a tough question. I mean, in his last outing against Jermaine Franklin, I was not that impressed with it. It was kind of like a performance for me. Then the fact that they're putting him in with Dillian Whyte, that was the original plan. It's like, Jesus, I mean, what are we doing here? At this point. So Helenius, I think he is a dangerous opponent, but not for long. I think maybe 2-3 rounds, and then Joshua should be able to hit him with something and get him out of there. Because again, like I said, Helenius, he can give, but can't take too much, man. I think he might get clipped with something and get hurt, and then that might be it. But I do expect it to go at least 5 rounds, I want to say.
I mean, this should be the Pulev fight, right? Like where Joshua's more talented. But Joshua has a special talent of fighting down to the level of his competition. Like, it's very impressive. Like, Jermaine Franklin should not have been as in that fight. And, to me, at best, this screams 8 to 10 KO. But I feel like this is going to go all 12 rounds. Joshua, for some reason, is going to stay on his back foot and try to box.
Don't say that.
This is how I'm envisioning it. I'm seeing him staying at the end of the punches, which is the worst place to stay with Helenius.
Yep.
He's going to be right there. And then when Joshua does stuff like that, he can't slip a punch and fire. So if Helenius throws a jab, then it's reset, wait. It's like what Paulie Malignaggi goes. Joshua's the king of you go, I go. So if the fight...
Yep.
I'm envisioning.
There it is.
There you go. All right. Yeah, man, this is great stuff here, man. And look, we'll find out for sure if Joshua still has the hunger, the desire. Does he got the eye of the tiger anymore? We'll find out.
But does desire really mean that much? Like, I have a desire to be a heavyweight champion, but I don't have the talent for it. So, he might desire it and want it, but the problem is Fury doesn't have to train. He can stop him in 4 rounds. The problem is Usyk probably isn't even a heavyweight, but we rate him as a really good heavyweight because Usyk beat him 2 times because he went in with a smaller man and said, you know what would be a great game plan? I'm going to outbox him. So, I mean, I think the problem with Joshua is even if he wants it, there's a talent deficit with him at the highest level of the sport.
Well, and you have to feel for Anthony Joshua because keep in mind, and you said it right out of the gate, right? This is a guy who's always been a ticket seller. So he's always been expected to fill stadiums. And if you want to fill stadiums, fill venues, then you have to fight, well, seemingly the best, right? You have to fight world-class opposition. And this is a guy who's never been allowed to learn on the job, really. This is a guy who's never been, well, allowed to hone his craft, to get better. He's always had the spotlight on him. Now, this is his chance. Now, keep in mind, it's a very, very short window, right? But with Jermaine Franklin, now with Robert Helenius, and at the very, like, January, February, right? He's expected to fight Deontay Wilder. And once again, we don't even know if Deontay Wilder is the same. We don't even know if he still has the same chin that he had before getting knocked out by Tyson Fury. That's a huge question mark. Once again, I don't care. I just want to see it. Damn it, the heavyweight division. And what's the old saying, Lukey? The old adage, as the heavyweight division goes, as the heavyweights go, so goes boxing. Right?
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's it. Damn it. Let's see these damn heavyweights.
Yeah,
let's
so
see
I want to read his resume because people always talk about Joshua's resume being so impressive. So going back to 2015, he beats Dillian White, who now we can really kind of question how Dillian White got there. He beats Charles Martin, and if you remember, Charles Martin beat Glazov, who I can't remember, and kind of fell into a world title shot and gets a big payday and was very unfocused. I think that win in hindsight, if you try to compare that to Jared Anderson, Charles Martin kind of was counting his money before he even fought that fight. We get Dominique Brazil, okay, Eric Molina. Then we have the Vladimir Klitschko. He beats Klitschko years after Tyson Fury had proven that you could beat Klitschko and faced a lot of adversity in that fight, minor details. Then we have Carlos Takam, who was featured on HBO Boxing, losing a fight. I think it was against Unetsky Gonzalez, or can't remember who, but he was losing a fight. Then we have Joe Parker, an even fight that was actually a lot closer than the cards showed. Alexander Povetkin, who was extremely old, gets knocked out by Andy Ruiz, avenges Andy Ruiz, who doesn't train, beats Pulev, who Top Rank may or may not have options on, and then Usyk schools him twice. I mean, I get it. Like, in theory, you're manipulating the ranking systems and he's fighting the best guys, but that just doesn't impress me that much for like how people talk about his resume.
Yeah, that's a good point, Luke. That's a good point, man. But this has been great, man. We actually went a little bit longer, and that's all right because I feel like we hit on some really good points going into this fight this weekend, man. And we'll see. I think Helenius is a good opponent.
General G Funky, I'm just saying, like, I like Joshua, but people act like, oh man, Fury's got this terrible well, Fury's got like basically 3 B-side wins, and it should be 4 B-side wins fighting in enemy territory. He beats Klitschko. He beats Wilder twice in America. That's a lot better than anything Joshua's ever done. Like, he's never really, and then when Joshua's had those type of challenges, he's broken. Like, Ruiz kind of laid it up for him. Like, Ruiz had his belly over his trunks, and he was still trying to give it away to Ruiz. He's like, okay, I'm just going to stay on the outside. And then Usyk, you know, it's like Usyk dominated the cruiserweight division, looked horrible at heavyweight. We don't even know if Usyk's good at heavyweight because we don't know where Joshua's at. And Wilder, we know Wilder's not great, but he hits hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, man.
Look, it's just like when sizing up this Joshua Usyk matchup, right? If there's a guy who can comfortably take the lead, Usyk's in trouble. Usyk's in trouble. He's going to have a hard time. Like, look at the Derek Chisora event okay, in terms of being problematic compared to the Anthony Joshua fight. It would almost seem that a shot Derek Chisora gave Usyk a lot more problems. And why? He could take the lead. He could take the lead.
Yeah.
So once again, anyone who's riding off Daniel Dubois, who's comfortable at taking the lead, he's not just a pocket counterpuncher. Guys, don't write this guy off. Once again, there's so much to love about this version of the heavyweight division. Mix and match, who cares? We just want to see the fights.
Yeah.
That's where the frustration lies. And once again, we're going to see a great first-class matchup this Saturday in Anthony Joshua against a taller, rangier, more experienced Robert Helenius. Thank you, Matchroom Sports. Thank you, DAZN. Thank you, Robert Helenius.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, man.
Funky, I got one other thing for you. So, is there any concern Joshua might have that Helenius is coming off a short camp, and I believe he weighed in at a career low, really good shape for his last fight, which was literally a week ago. Do you think he's going to battle any demons, that this is the same situation he faced with Andy Ruiz?
That's a possibility. That's definitely a possibility because, again, last time something like this happened, didn't go so well for Joshua. So,
well, keep in mind also, guys, keep in mind, no one is talking about, the monkey on Derek James' back currently. He needs this. He needs this.
Yeah.
He needs a big win. Get this damn monkey off my back. I need Anthony Joshua to perform and to bring honor back to Shea James. Hey, there are a lot of great storylines under this. And like I said, the Dillian Whyte fight, him testing positive for the third time, him pulling a big baby Miller. Hey, thank you. Thank you, brother. I love this event. I love this fight. I like this so much more, brother. And you know what? In the theater of the unexpected, anything can and often does happen. God bless boxing.
I also want to say, people are giving Derek James a tough time. It's like these trainers are important, but I also think people forget that the fighters fight the fights. And it's not like Derek James can get in there and grab his PlayStation 5 controller and be like, Errol, move quick. And you can be a great coach and go on a losing streak because you're fighting world-class top-tier athletes. Freddie Roach has had tons of fighters who lose. It doesn't change the fact that he can prepare you well for a fight. I think it's just showing the novice in the fight viewer when people are like, oh man, Derek James is not a good,
exposed.
I know. Yeah, he's exposed, right? And it's like, I get what you're saying though, is I'm sure if you're Derek James, you're hearing all this criticism and you went from being the Phil Jackson of boxing, whispering, having all these great fighters. And now everyone's like, does this guy know what he's doing? Because it looked like Errol wasn't a just. Is that Derek or is that Errol? But something went wrong. I'm sure he'd love a first round knockout and be able to wear a cool shirt and smile and do the #1 photo in the ring. But, I also think that people value coaches a little bit higher than a great fighter.
Look, Lukey, look, make no mistake about it, brother. I'm just regurgitating fan sentiment. You know as well as I, and this is just my personal opinion, right? I've always believed that the Trainer of the Year honors given by the Boxing Writers of America, whatever, and the Ring magazine, I've always thought that was an overrated topic, right? Because once again, I'm going to quote Emmanuel Stewart. Look, a trainer is only as strong as the horses that he jockeys. Mm-hmm. It's the fighters. It's the fighters. Yep. It's not the sculptor. It's the marble. Right?
Yeah, you guys are.
It's the fighters, guys.
You guys are right on the money. And like Luke said, what's Derek James going to do with Errol Spence against Terrence Crawford? Like you said, he's not able to pick up the PlayStation control and move him around. Like people are just expecting him to tell Spence to do something that he's just physically not capable of doing in the ring. And
he had a concussion.
That too. So, yeah, tough spot to be in. But hey, like you said,
guys, let's look at the last years, G Funky. Let's look at the last 2 years before we move on. Eddie Reynoso, 2 years ago, trainer of the year. Great trainer. Great trainer. And then last year, Derek
Had
James.
a horrible year. Yeah.
Okay. So what now? Bomac?
But
This is a very overrated topic. And in my opinion, it's dog shit, guys. Because once again, a trainer is only as strong as the horses that he jockeys. Does he have a thoroughbred in his stable? That's it. That's it, guys. Because and Lukey, you know as well as I, there's so many talented, underrated trainers that don't get enough shine because they don't have the thoroughbreds in their stable, right?
I'd almost say that the best coaches don't have those type of fighters and go underappreciated. I'd like to say, like, you look at Eddie Reynoso, that's a great example, right? His year where he gets exposed. So Canelo loses to Bivol, probably a Hall of Fame boxer. Then Oscar Valdez loses to Shakur Stevenson, probably a Hall of Fame boxer. This year, Derek James is exposed because Errol Spence loses to Terrence Crawford, a Hall of Fame boxer. Is the standard that you're a trainer of the year? We can't give you some leeway if you lose to a Hall of Fame fighter.
Right. And great adding context to the whole thing. That's something that I think a lot of fans leave out when doing these sort of things, man. This has been great, man. Glad I got you guys on. And again, you guys listening, man, you hit that like button, man. This is some great stuff we got going on here. So real quickly, guys, again, if you're listening and you want to call in and give your thoughts on any of these topics, the number is scrolling at the bottom of the screen, 916-572-1020. You can talk to G Funky, Joseph Haran, and Lukey Boxing. All right.
Talk to me, I talk back.
That's right. And it's free 99. You ain't got to pay for it. Okay. But anyway, let's move on, man. Now, it's been reported according to sources. Okay. It's always sources. All right. We don't know who these sources are, but it's always sources.
Sources.
A possible fight for this October. Benavidez versus Andrade.
Wait, let me correct you. I actually got a source on this, and it's November. Like, I know for a fact that it's November.
Got you. So yeah, it's looking like the fall, November, like Lukey said. Real quick, guys, what are your thoughts on this potential matchup? I'll start with you, Luke.
You're not even going to introduce it? Like, the Benavidez, I'll introduce it. So David Benavidez, super middleweight champion. He's two-time WBC champion. If you count interim titles, he's a three-time champion. Fierce pressure fighter, Mexican fighter, maybe a little bit limited in terms of like sticking a jab and distance and range, but he can really hit hard, throws volume. Got a great bully mentality where he really works downhill. And if you're hurt, it's just going to be, he's taking you to Chin Check Alley. Taking on one of the best amateurs to pro fighters of his era, Demetrius Andrade, now 35 years old, two-division world champion, held titles at junior middleweight and now middleweight, now moving up to super middleweight, trying to be a three-division world champion. It's a great fight because Demetrius has been looking for a big fight, and I think sadly he's maybe a little past his prime, but he's still sharp enough where I think he can still compete at this high level because he's one of the best guys I've ever seen in the gym. And I've seen him for like 10 years. And every time I was like, how is this guy not getting more opportunities? And I'm like, oh, because he's so awkward and he's good. This is a great fight, man, because David, the styles of these two fighters make it so interesting because what they want to do is what the other one doesn't want to do. It reminds me of Arislandi Lara versus Alfredo Angulo. And I think that was a sneaky, enjoyable fight. That's what the way the styles kind of match up to me. Southpaw versus a pressure fighter. I think it's an enjoyable fight. I think the frustration is this is the type of fight I would like to come with a Showtime subscription.
Yeah.
To me, this doesn't feel like a pay-per-view quality fight. And as the consumer, like I'm not trying to take anything away from the fighters, but as a consumer, it's just a little bit hard going into the holiday season to justify this while justifying other expenses.
Lukey, you hit the nail right on the head, man. It's an interesting matchup for sure. Two of the top guys in the division, but unfortunately, yeah, it's going to be on pay-per-view. That's the tough part right there. And Andrade's a tough sell, man. And I said this the other day on your show, Joseph and I, when we were talking with Rick Laser. Nobody is even watching Andrade fight for free, and then you want to put it behind a paywall. Geez, this is going to be a tough sell, man. And looking at the numbers that Benavidez did with Plant, again, nobody paid for that fight. I'm sure a lot of people watched it. I heard it was just over 100,000. What'd you hear, Joe? About the same?
It was less than 100,000. It was like 91,000.
Yeah. Yep. So not very good, man. So both guys really don't have the kind of following to justify putting this thing on pay-per-view, other than, like my man Joseph would say, looking for inflated purses, and then they have to put it on pay-per-view out of necessity. But that's really the main problem I have with it. I love the fight. I love to see it. That's a great. I didn't even think about that matchup though. Angulo versus Lara. That was a great comparison there, because going into that fight, a lot of people were like, Lara just gonna run, but he was forced to stay in the pocket in exchange, and he actually got the better of Angulo, made him quit. So
yes, he did.
It did turn into a really good fight. Before I get your take, Joseph, I want to say what's up to a few more people that popped into the chat. No more drama here. It says boxing fans are fickle. Yes, they sure are. My man Bruce Gass is here as well. Boxing, Jazz, and more. Make sure you guys subscribe to his channel. All right. And we got somebody here picking Navarrete. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But Joseph, I want to get your thoughts. Benavidez, Andrade, hit me.
Where do I start, brother? Once again, this is and Lukey pegged it correctly. This is a Showtime Championship Boxing fight card, exclusively subscriber only. Guys, the only reason, and this exposes a huge problem within the business of boxing, okay? Because the only reason why this is being, suggested for pay-per-view is because, both of these guys want way too much money for this event. Make no mistake about this, guys. If both of these guys want reasonable amounts of money for this event, this is going to be on regular subscriber Showtime Championship Boxing. But because they want inflated purses, guess what? They have no choice but to attach the pay-per-view revenue stream. So basically what that says, it's securing, it's basically limiting the audience that this event is going to have.
Yes.
So basically, it's basically securing the idea that no one's going to watch it. Now think about this. Who's going to watch this fight? Look, Benavidez, I understand he wants to stay on pay-per-view. Ever since that Plant debacle, he thinks, I'm a pay-per-view star. Bullshit. How did that pay-per-view do?
Not very well.
If you want to remain on pay-per-view, guess what? You're going to have to find someone who brings that kind of audience. Now, G-Funky does, despite what he's accomplished in the ring, right? Does Demetrius Andrade, does he bring an audience to this event?
No, he does not.
Look, man, your market value in this business is determined by the amount of people who want to see you fight. That's it. Ticket sales.
Can I add something to that too?
Sales.
In theory, it should be also who you beat. Like, so if you beat Canelo, you should make...
No. We're talking about reality, though, not theoretical.
No, but I'm saying, like, in a perfect world, whoever you beat...
a perfect world is not boxing, though, Lukey.
But, like, there should be a level of transition
here. Look, a perfect world is the Yankees playing the Red Sox 14 times a year. Okay? That's a perfect world, right? This is not treated like a sport. Keep in mind, guys, boxing, the business of it, it's an entertainment field that's run more like the music industry as well as the motion picture industry. Now, keep in mind, we were just talking about this, G-Funky and I. Jim Carrey, right? Go back to the 90s, right? Jim Carrey, what was his market value after what was it called? Ace Ventura, the first one, as well as
yeah.
I think he
Dumb
got
and Dumber.
$100 million for like a
Yeah.
studio contractor. It was
No,
something
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah,
Exactly. And why was that, Lukey?
because
Why?
he was
Industry
smashing.
standard. People
no,
see
it's-
his
no, no, no.
face and he
Not-
brings in viewers.
Once
Yep.
again, it's not industry standard. That's demand.
But it's
Demand.
also, he was like the guy every studio's trying to replicate. Like he was the
And
standard
why?
of 90s
Why?
comedy. Well,
Why?
he connected with an audience. Like connecting with an
Exactly.
audience creates
You
the
hit the-
viewership.
You hit the nail right on the head. It's demand. And once again, guys, this same principle applies to boxing. Okay? If there's no demand from the real bosses of boxing, the fans, guess what? You can't demand millions for your fights. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. Okay? No matter what you think you've accomplished in the ring, if you don't bring viewers to the TV, if you don't bring fans to the arena, guess what? You can't demand $3 million per outing. Now, unfortunately, Demetrius Andrade, he's a product of receiving inflated purses from Eddie Hearn, right?
Horrible Hearn.
Guess what? $3 million against Jason Quigley. Okay, so
Yeah.
now he's going into this thinking that, oh shit, I made $3 million versus Jason Quigley. How much do you think I deserve now for a fight against David Benavidez, the Mexican monster? He's going to demand at least $5 million. So guess what? Steven Espinoza has no choice but to attach the pay-per-view revenue stream to this dog with fleas. Because let's just be honest, David Benavidez is not going to look good, win or lose, against a crafty, elite level fighter like Demetrius Andrade. This is a problem, guys, for everyone involved.
Very difficult style to look good against Demetrius
Well, I think
Andrade.
another thing too is like I heard Devin Haney Regis might be on pay-per-view.
Oh,
So it's like-
shit.
Oh, man.
That's like a rumor I just heard.
Holy shit. And dude, and once again, this is, guys, Jake Paul versus anybody. Jake Paul may be much better for the health of boxing than we all imagined. Because this is a guy, Jake Paul, who actually has a huge commercial mainstream demand. And he's only demanding $2 million guaranteed. Now compare that to what Haney is demanding
Right.
for
Regis.
a guaranteed purse. And Regis Prograis.
Mhm.
Brother, now this is a guy who has a market value, right? That's very high. He's got a high demand. Compare that to Haney, Prograis, two guys who couldn't sell at my living room on a Saturday night. Right?
Yeah.
This is what's wrong with the business of boxing. These guys, okay, don't understand what merits their market value. What creates a market value? It's not what you've accomplished in the ring. If that were the case, Guillermo Rigondeaux would have been the highest paid fighter in boxing 10 years ago. But that wasn't the case, guys. And that never will be the case. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Your
unfortunate
market
for the
value
sport, too.
is determined. Your market value is determined by number of tickets sold, number of pay-per-views sold. Okay. And the ratings on TV. Neither Haney nor Prograis has shit for ratings. And when you look at, going back to topic, Boo Boo Andrade, David Benavidez, neither man has a big history of ticket sales, pay-per-view sales, or ratings. So why would this be on pay-per-view? It's basically a guarantee that no one's going to see it. The only people who are going to see this fight are people who stream this shit illegally. That's a guarantee, guys.
They embezzle it, Joe.
Or
right?
us, the boxing nerds who sit
Yeah,
on
we'll be watching
YouTube and we talk about fights
what?
and we get
Guess
exploited.
what? They don't financially support the sport anymore. They don't buy shit.
There's a group,
Why do
there's
you?
a big
Why
group
do you?
of
Why do you think networks are so interested in getting these circus events? Why do you think? Because
I actually put that on Twitter.
They will attract a much larger mainstream and casual demographic while demanding less.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's the thing, man. There's a group. There's several groups here on YouTube that I hear say things like, "Oh, we ain't buying this fight." We're gonna do, like, and that's just sad. They've picked sides. They've drawn lines when it comes to promotional companies for God knows whatever reason. Only to drive up the numbers on their channel, which is just awful. If you're a boxing fan and they give you a matchup that you want, you should pay for it. There should be no regrets, whether it's a good fight or a bad fight. It ends in one punch, whatever. It's a fight that you wanted. It got made. You should pay for it, man. Now,
I want to say something like this is why Misfits Boxing is probably going to start to compete with Golden Boy and Matchroom at DAZN, is because they're going to bring viewers in. And if they do a pay-per-view, they're going to land the revenue because they're going to have the demand. I think
you've got it.
Boxing is actually going to compete with world-class boxing if we're not careful, because what's happening is we're devaluing what world-class boxing is, and the achievement and the accolades are when that doesn't matter as much, the influencers can come in with huge fan bases and they're more relevant than Benavidez and Andrade. And that's just the facts.
That's a good point.
Brother, that's been the case for the past 30 years, pretty much. That's been the case for the past, well, I will say this for sure, 20 years. That's been the case, Lukey. Okay? Once again, if you cannot fill venues, if you cannot sell tickets, if you cannot draw ratings, if you cannot sell pay-per-views, what is your worth in boxing? Who cares if you're the lineal champion of whatever division? That does not matter. And Lukey, the business has been this way for decades, brother.
It sucks, man, because other sports, when guys accomplish great things, they get recognized, they get big contracts. But boxing, for whatever reason, like you said, Joe, it doesn't. Being a two-time lineal, three-time lineal, undisputed champ, whatever it may be, fans just, for some reason, the casuals at least, don't give a shit. They just don't.
Look, unfortunately, in a perfect world, right? In a perfect world, in football, when you have a career high season in terms of stats, you get rewarded and you get your highest career payday. Same with the NBA, same with the MLB. But guess what? Boxing, it doesn't matter. Unless you can put asses in those seats, who gives a shit? No one cares. No one cares. Guys,
the people that are paying for it,
That's right. It's run more like the music industry. Like, look at this in music. Taylor Swift and Bad Bunny, they're the two highest paid musicians touring currently. Are they the two best? Far from it. They suck ass, guys. Come on. Let's just be honest. That's what boxing is at this time. That's what why do you think so many heavyweights are running the skills challenge? Because they're getting paid those inflated purses. Yes. Even though Usyk has never been a ticket seller anywhere, guess what? He stands to make $50 million fighting Tyson Fury next year. Right?
Yeah. If that fight happens.
That's it. That's it, guys. That's the way it is.
And I couldn't even name 3 songs from either one of those artists. So, yeah. And look, I understand there's fans that are frustrated with the price tag. I understand, man. I do. If you can, hey, throw a fight party, man. Have your friends chip in. Call 4 or 5 friends. You could cover the bill that way. There's ways to do it, man. But I get it, man. It's tough, and it does suck that, unfortunately, fighters that do great things don't get recognized for it and don't get paid for it. That's Teofimo Lopez's whole gripe right now, is that he's accomplished some good things in his career, and then look at a guy like Tank Davis who's getting paid crazy money. He hasn't done half of what he's done. So, yep, it's one of those things, man. And who knows if it'll ever change.
Let's take it to another area. Josh Warrington keeps getting world title shots. And it's
Right.
simply because he fills up arenas.
Yep. And he's a terrible fighter and a dirty fighter, too. I can't stand watching that guy fight, and I will never watch him fight again, and I will never cover one of his fights again. He is just flat out a dirty fighter. He intentionally tries to hurt and cut guys, and that can shorten careers, man. I'm not for that. But you're right, Lukey. Yep. Unfortunately, because he people like him over there in the UK. Yeah, he gets another title shot now at Lee Wood after coming off a loss, which is just sickening in my opinion. But let's move on, man, to the main topic here. Navarrete Valdez. Now, if you guys want to give me who you think is going to win, you can go ahead and do that now. If not, it's all good. And you guys in the chat as well. But I just want to simply ask a question. Will this fight be good enough and be entertaining enough to become the next great Mexican rivalry? Because we got to remember all those rivalries that I named off at the beginning of the show. Those were all fantastic fights. Every single one of them were great fights. Fans wanted to see him again. And my question to you guys is, will this one live up to those expectations and become a trilogy, a great Mexican trilogy? And if not, who do you think could possibly give one of these guys that rivalry? Joe, I'll start with you.
Well, let me tell you, man, when you go back and look at the great Eric Morales versus Marco Antonio Barrera, this was an HBO Boxing After Dark fight.
Yeah, the first one. Yep.
This wasn't even a thought for pay-per-view, because before that, you have to go back to Flash Elorde for a closed circuit pay-per-view at featherweight, right?
Yeah.
So this was not even a thought. And then all of a sudden, this is a huge commercial and critical hit. And so all of a sudden, HBO was like, oh, shit, let's put this on pay-per-view. This was such a great, monumental undertaking. Let's put the rematch on pay-per-view, right? So what's going to determine whether or not this is a great Mexican trilogy is going to be the demand of the fans, how this first fight plays out. Are we going to see high drama? Are we going to see those great ebbs and flows in action? Are we going to create that demand? Once again, guys, everything is contingent on how it's received by the real bosses of boxing, the fans. Guys, like it or not, you guys are the real bosses of boxing. So the only thing I can say is tune in, and let your opinions be heard through social media. That's going to determine everything. But in my opinion, yes, guys, Oscar Valdez versus Vaquero Navarrete. This is going to be a time capsule fight. It's going to be an instant classic. So, guys, tune in and support your beloved boxing. Be the real bosses of our beloved pastime. Okay? Tune in.
Yeah, it's free 99. I see some of you guys talking about it's difficult to make the $80 a month and, to stream it because you're low income. Well, hey, this one here, you don't need none of that. It's for free. It's with every basic cable package or satellite package, whatever it may be. You'll be able to view the fight right then and there as soon as it happens. Luke, you were the one that presented this question to me, man. So I want to know, what are your thoughts here, man? Could this turn into that great Mexican rivalry?
I don't think so. I think Navarrete's trending the wrong way against Eduardo Baez. He was losing every round until he landed a body shot. In his last fight, he looked really shaky against Liam Wilson. I don't like some of the things he's saying to the broadcasters, Tim Bradley, Andre Ward. One day I'm going to take the sport more serious. In my opinion, he's built habits that you can't fix in one world-class camp. There's something about him that's different than Valdez. Valdez has treated every fight the same. I feel like Navarrete fights up and down to his level of competition. Best case scenario is Juan Francisco Estrada, because Estrada is the king of fighting up and down to your level of competition, making it impossible to pick a Juan Francisco Estrada fight because you have no clue what guy's showing up. Maybe Navarrete is that. I feel like Navarrete is really trending in the wrong direction. I think this is probably going to be kind of fast. I'm seeing it between 4 to 6 rounds. Valdez stops him. I think it's going to be a levels fight.
Woo, man. Luke.
So let me get this straight. Brother. So Navarrete was doing terribly until he wasn't? That's what you're saying?
I think
in
so
2 fights against Eduardo Baez, I think he lost every second of every round until he landed a body shot.
Until he won?
But,
until he knocked the guy out? No shit.
Yeah. But he was fighting. He was fighting a guy of lesser opposition.
Regardless,
well,
guys.
That matters to me from a critical eye, because that's
from a critical eye. That's what always determines a great fight. That ebb and flow, that drama. Right?
2 flawed
that's
fighters. It's what makes a great fighter. Or a great fight is like 2 flawed fighters who are gonna fight a dumb fight. Typically,
that's true too.
Okay, unless you talk. well, sometimes, but when you're talking about Calzaghe Kessler, are those 2 dumb fighters? Because that resulted in a great fight, Lukey.
I'd say they were flawed to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like they both had flaws that could be exploited. Like you don't see Andre Ward in a lot of all-time classics. You don't see Floyd in a lot of all-time classics. You don't see like master pugilists. Like you don't even really see Terrence Crawford in all-time classics. The guys that typically are in those are either guys on the come up or guys that rely on one thing, which is, at least to me, it's typically power or athleticism. There's like a flaw.
I will say this, and if you view this as a flaw, then I'm sorry, I don't. Because what you're saying then is, if you view a defensive-minded fighter, okay, if you view someone who isn't a defensive-minded fighter as a flaw, like keep in mind Joe Calzaghe, Mikhail Kessler, they're great fighters. Joe Calzaghe is a Hall of Famer, right? He wasn't a defensive-minded fighter. That's not a flaw, in my opinion. That's not a flaw.
So, like, how I'd explain it to you is, as I'd explain that he didn't always turn over his punches, and though he was a master of angles at times based on the way he threw some of his punches, not because of the temperament in the ring, but he left openings based on certain. Most fighters have fundamental flaws. It's very rare you don't have them. Like there's lots of guys that bring their left hand down when they throw a left hook. The all-time great fights are the guy that can throw a good right hand when the guy drops the left hook, but then the guy he's fighting drops his right hand when he throws the right hand. Boom, they both go down, because even though they're world-class fighters, they're both able to see that little tiny flaw that nobody else can see because it's happening so quick at a world-class level. That's like Bernard Hopkins is not in a lot of all-time great fighters, and it's not even, he is a great defensive fighter. It's not even that he's a great defensive fighter about that, because James Toney is one of the best defensive fighters, and one of my favorite fights ever is McCallum Toney. To me, what it is, it's the guys that are fundamentally sound, who don't allow very many openings, don't allow a fight to have the ebbs and flows, because they're so disciplined and controls. Their greatness is making a fight like one long hump. Like Andre Ward is not going to make, outside of the first Kovalev fight, he's going to make it sound like a dial tone. That's his greatness, is he's going to keep everything at a certain pace, a certain temperament. And when you go up and down, he's emotionless. And that's what I'm kind of getting at, is like, you don't see kind of typically the greatest fighters of the era in a fight of the year often.
Yeah. And I'll say this about Navarrete
that
lately.
Is true.
And I do think that this fight will be entertaining, but I don't think it goes a full 12. I don't. And guys, I'm just going to tell you right now, I normally don't like to say these things until I do my breakdown, but that's going to happen Thursday night, by the way. So make sure that you come back, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll be doing the film study and everything on this fight, but I do think that Valdez catches him with something big. And I just don't think that these wild, unorthodox punches and things that he does, I don't know how long you can go winning that way, especially against
he's
world-class
soft to the
opposition.
body, bro. He's
That
soft to the
too.
body in a third weight class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too. I noticed that when he fought Joet Gonzalez. If we could go back a few more fights, Joet pushed him back with a nice stiff jab and was able to go to his body. And yeah, you did see him have some trouble with that, with him in that fight. As far as Baez goes, to me, he looked like just the way I seen it. He looked like he was just very nonchalant in the ring. Looked like he didn't take camp seriously. He didn't take this guy seriously. And I mean, I'm scoring the fight round after round after round after round. I'm giving Baez. I'm like, it's not even close at this point.
Yep.
And then he lands a body shot, and that was it. And that's kind of the thing with Navarrete is that he's so wild and unorthodox. He can end the fight that way.
You guys are stressing a fight in which he was losing until he wasn't.
Yeah.
Why?
Because his next fight, Liam Wilson dropped him basically from the same trend of just not starting.
And what happened? And what happened?
Well, he stopped him, but these are guys that are not world class.
So what it looks like to me, what it sounds like to me, is you guys are putting more emphasis on the wrong things. This is a guy who was losing, okay, and who answered those questions, okay, came from behind, okay, and found a way to win. So why aren't you guys? Hold on. Why aren't you guys focusing on that?
No, I mean,
because I hadn't really followed either guy's career or really even cared about the fights, and then he made it into like competitive affairs with people I wasn't excited about.
What are you excited about, Luki?
Well, I'll say this, Joe. I'll answer your question with a question. Mm-hmm. Is that a recipe for long-term success, especially as you go up in competition? Because this is a big step, in my opinion. This is a big step in competition for Navarrete.
Yeah, of course, dude. When you fight like Oscar Valdez, when you fight like Emmanuel Navarrete, of course that's not a recipe for long-term success. Once again, no one gives a shit about that. Okay, you guys are forgetting and not thinking about the business of boxing. Andre Ward. Luki brought up Andre Ward. Oh, his greatness. Well, how many asses did his greatness put in seats?
No, not many.
Hold on. What kind of ticket seller was Andre Ward?
Better than people give him credit for, but it wasn't great. I mean, he sold a solid 9,000 to 10,000.
Hold on. That ain't shit, dude. For like how many pay-per-views? Hold on. How many pay-per-views did he sell? How many pay-per-views did he sell?
He was never going to be that type of fighter.
Oh, okay. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the entertainment industry.
Yeah,
right?
but we're also talking about wins and losses.
When you're talking about Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez, okay, what kind of fight are we talking about? We're talking about a potential barn burner. We're talking about a potential fight of the year. Like this is a fight that very well may captivate a much larger mainstream and casual demographic. Isn't that what everyone wants?
Yeah, no, I'll say this, man. Well, I think what you're confusing here is the excitement that the fight could potentially have, and with us kind of giving our, I guess, mini breakdown on why we think the fight won't be.
Okay. I will say this, Chief. I will say this.
So keep that in mind.
If you guys are hoping for a damn trilogy, that's the only way it happens. That's the only way it happens. If this fight is a barn burner, if this fight has ebbs and flows, if this fight has a ton of defensive lapses, that's the only way this fight is a trilogy.
Yeah, that's true.
Make no mistake about it, brother. That's what mainstream and casual fans actually want to see.
Right. I don't think that's going to happen. I think fans are going to be excited for it because I do think that Valdez, although I think he's a lot better defensively than Navarrete is. He's no defensive wizard by any means.
He's a two-time Olympian.
Yeah, he's a great boxer. Yeah, he's a great boxer.
Yeah,
but I'll say this:
a great fighter.
I think it's going to be exciting for the time. I don't think it's going to go 12. I don't think it's going to resemble the great rivalries that we talked about. That's just my opinion. Looking at it from a styles perspective, I think somebody else could fill in. I hope it does too. I just have that feeling after looking at both guys. I've been watching Valdez now. I mean, I've been watching Valdez for a while now since he turned pro. But Navarrete, I've been following his career since 2019. I want to say I really watched just about every single one of his fights. So I got a pretty good read on the guy. And look, if it turns into a great fight and I'm wrong, that's all good. I got no issue with that. I just don't think so. I think he leaves too many openings, man. And with a guy who can punch and counterpunch well, like Oscar Valdez, and he's got the kind of power to put the lights out in one shot, you could get clipped with something big, man. And then that could, again, fans might be entertained, but they might not want to see it again. We'll see. I think another fighter maybe coming up, or if Valdez decides to move up after this, could potentially be that Mexican rivalry that we want. But I just don't see it with this fight, Joe. I don't.
Well, I tell you what, man, there is someone that I work with who does see this, and his name is James Gogi. And look. And this guy has 5 decades fight experience, right? All I'm saying is look, this is the theater of the unexpected. Anything can and often does happen in that squared circle. Let's hope that it does on Saturday night. Guys, and once again, who gives a shit about your pre-fight prognostications? Who cares? Just hope for the best. Why? Why, dude? Look. Hope for the best product for boxing. Hope for the best product for the fans. Okay?
I think it's going to be entertaining.
Again, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
And once again, hey, may the best fighter win. But hey, let's have some drama and sense of urgency while we're seeing it.
I think
once again, we want to see those ebbs and flows. I think there will be also. I think this is a great matchup between two flawed combatants. And once again, I love it. I fucking love it. And I want to see it on Saturday night. I want to see it on ESPN. Even though I think ESPN is kind of a, well, you know what I think about that platform. You know what I think about that platform. I think it's a flawed platform, right? And it's great for college sports. It's great for Monday Night Football, but I think it's flawed for boxing. I think Joe Tessitore, being a great professional guy that he is, right? I still think his voice, most boxing fans connotate that with B-level boxing.
Yeah, Friday night.
That's what I think. I think that's a huge obstacle to overcome for the health of the business, in my opinion.
We talked about this before. Actually, leading up to the Crawford fight, we talked about the commentary. But I'll just say this, Joe. Just because I'm picking a guy to win in brutal fashion, that doesn't mean that I don't want what's best for the sport, man. I don't want you to get that confused. And I think Lukey's feeling the same way. We just feel like Navarrete's flaws are going to catch up to him in this fight with a guy who's very good at catching you unexpectedly with a big left hook.
And you know what? That very well may happen. And honestly, I can see that happening big time. But once again, my question was, okay, you guys are focusing on, this guy was losing every round until he wasn't. Well, why aren't you focusing on the part where he wasn't?
No, we will. I
will. To like how I look at life. So if like a stock is losing money every month, I'm going to assume they're going to go bankrupt as opposed to that they're going to go up. And that's kind of like the way I look. It's like a predictive model.
That's a good way. Yeah. And
that's not an accurate analogy, though, because once again, he was losing until he wasn't, and then he won the fight. That's not like a stock.
So we're gonna act like we're in a courtroom right now. Mm-hmm. Were those fighters at the same level as Navarrete in those fights?
What were the rankings?
No, I mean, if you were to assess them, like, would you say they were at the exact same level skill set wise, or would you say they were like a little below him?
It depends. How were they ranked before that fight?
Okay,
So
so
what are you going by?
non-answer.
Are you going by the eyeball test?
Yeah,
Are you
just
going
like
by
how
rankings?
you look at them, and you're just like, this is how I feel about this fighter.
Okay, so once again, styles make fights, right? So what are you going by?
Styles. That's what I go
So
by all the
Are
time.
you going by ranking? You going by styles make fights? Because if I had to guess, I would say no. They weren't the champion, and guess what? They didn't beat the champion. How's that?
Perfect, right? So then he's showing, we'll use the word concern. So he's showing distress and concern currently against guys that we don't think are the champion and probably guys that won't hold the belt at either division. So now we're seeing a trend going into his most grueling and arguably his toughest fight with a pattern and a trend of possibly going the wrong direction in his last two fights with performances that, in my opinion, bring up more questions than answers.
Okay.
So
well, then
now
how did those fights end up?
Well, and there's two ways we can look at that, right? So
Exactly. That's my point.
set,
You guys are looking at this one way only.
No. We're not saying that he didn't win the fights. We're saying, yeah, he won. He overcame adversity against Wilson.
What does that say for Emmanuel Navarrete?
Yeah, he's
well, I guess
you guys haven't talked about that at all.
Because
Keep in
I
mind,
think he
this
thought
guy
that he
when
was better
faced
than
with
them.
adversity, this guy when faced with adversity, he finds a way to win. He finds a way to win. I haven't heard that from neither you nor Lukey.
Let me tell you why. Because, like I said before we got on this topic, this is not my full breakdown. I do. You know, you see my breakdowns. I do both.
Of course. So forgive me, G Funky, and once again, forgive me, Lukey. If
no, this is passionate fight fan talk. Like everything. This is. I love this type of debate because this is what keeps you alive. Just for me, when I look at this fight, I see Oscar Valdez as someone that's very underrated with having a lot of technical skill and a really hard worker who's never cut any corners. When I look at Navarrete, I look at a guy who's possibly cut corners and has flaws, but has a huge will. So to me, he has a lot of the traits Miguel Berchelt had, but worse performances than Berchelt, and Valdez kind of picked him apart. And I see that maybe Navarrete will have a little bit of success, but I think this is going to be a brutal fight because Navarrete's hand speed is going to be a huge disadvantage in this fight. Valdez is a lot faster.
I agree. I also think that Navarrete has a much more creative offense. Okay, being a switch hitter, being a guy who actually throws creative combinations from odd angles. That's not Miguel Berchelt. In my opinion, everyone who is heavily favoring Oscar Valdez right now, they're thinking that this is Miguel Berchelt 2.0. This isn't, guys. He's a switch hitting badass who has power in both hands and who is a creative combination puncher from either side. So you tell me without a doubt if you think that Oscar Valdez is going to not be confused by any of that.
No, he will. He definitely will. It's done that to everybody.
Guys, my point is, G Funky, this is going to be a much better fight than everyone realizes. In my opinion, Lukey, this is going to be an instant classic. Guess what? Win-win boxing.
I hope so.
Hallelujah,
hope so, man.
Hallelujah.
And I think that it is going to be entertaining because Navarrete will be able to land shots on Valdez. I mean, look, he was able to knock down a guy who I feel is one of the best when it comes to footwork, angles, and hand speed in Ruben Villa when they fought in 2020. And again, that fight was a lot closer than I think most people had it when it was over. But he was able to land some shots on a guy like that who's, again, very crafty. Yeah, he's gonna have success. And again, this is why you got to tune into the breakdown, man. I'm gonna be talking about all of this stuff. I
love it. And I tell you what, guys, this, in my opinion, when Lukey and G brought up the idea of there being a trilogy for this matchup, I think there's a very high likelihood that there will be. In my opinion, okay, I think this is going to go right to the brink. There are going to be plenty of ebbs and flows in this fight. I think there are going to be plenty of drama. I think there's going to be plenty of drama in this fight. Guys, don't miss this one. and it's for free on ESPN. Guys, tune in. This is a great, great fight, guys. And once again, this should actually supersede anything that you hear from any boxing diehards. This should be a mainstream, fantastic event.
I think so too, man. Yeah, this has been a great show, man. We're running here over an hour. You guys
want to say one last thing is I think that if this doesn't produce that Luis Alberto Lopez versus Valdez or Navarrete in the future, I think for sure would produce that because it just, limited guy, gonna just go out on his shield. That's the kind of guy that typically produces some fight of the year. So if it's not this one, we're very close to having a rock'em sock'em Mexican just beat them up each other. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So let me ask you something, Lukey, though. Same reason I get vibe that's not your cup of tea.
Which one? Just like guys punching each other and running into each other.
Rock'em robots. Yeah.
I mean, it can be fun, but like I just look at it as stupidity, just based on how I was raised in the game. So I mean, it's fun and entertaining, but I just look at it as kind of like I'm the guy that left Rios Alvarado. To me, it's just kind of sad, to be honest. But I mean, to each their own. I look at the game different, and if people enjoy those, sometimes I get really into those fights, but I'm more drawn to mastery and what's the greatest in every industry I go into. So I don't view that as like the highest standard of long-term success. So that tends to be what I'm most drawn to in all forms of life.
Yeah, it's those type of fights, man. We all know, and we've seen this because we've all been watching this crazy thing that we're into for a long time.
I just started watching boxing at Mayweather Pacquiao. So speak for yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, we know these type of fights that we all want to see, the knockdowns and the brutal back and forth, the exchanges. They take years off your career, man. They do. I mean, one in particular I could say, Ruslan Provodnikov versus Tim Bradley. That changed Bradley's career dramatically.
But you can just say Ruslan's whole career. It's like
that too. Yeah.
He had a lot of good fights, but like really he should have fought up until 2018. Really.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He was in a lot of tough fights. Man. And we'll see how this one goes, man. And Joseph, he brought up Coach Gogi, who is, I mean, that guy is almost 100% accurate with his predictions. And look, he had a tough time deciding who he was going to pick for this fight. And he picked Navarrete. I respect the coach's decision to pick Navarrete. I just think that it's going to be, man, he's going to run into something, man. He's going to definitely
I hope I'm wrong. It'd be great if this is like a great fight and it spices up my weekend, because for the love of God, I definitely need some stuff like that in my life right now. But I feel like a space alien, G.
Yeah, man. I hear you, brother. Well, we're going to end this one right now, man. I don't know. Maybe Joseph has some internet problems here. I'll get in touch with him. But this has been a great show, man. I enjoyed having both of you guys on. We had a little back and forth. I think Joseph might have got a little confused on the topic. This was not the prediction show, even though I did tell you who I felt was going to win. But
it was fun. I like a little heated. I like a little. That's like how you know if someone loves the sport. It was pretty cool.
Absolutely, man. And you guys know, anybody who's watched my film studies, I go over the key sequences in previous fights for both guys and what I feel the key to victory are for both guys. So again, Thursday night, guys, we'll be doing that here. Make sure you're there. Luke, any parting shots you want to give to the audience here and to the viewers that are going to watch this once we're done?
I'm having a hard day / a hard week. I don't want pity or nothing, but it's really nice to get on here and talk boxing. Hopefully I wasn't out of character. I'm a little out of sorts to a certain degree, but it's real nice to come on, talk boxing with people. And if you thought my opinions were cool, that means more than you'd ever know at this present moment, because it's real easy to want to give up at some points in life. And I'm at one of those crossroads where it's real easy to want to give up. And just being on this show and talking with people is just a big blessing.
Absolutely, man. You know, we all go through things in life, man. And that's what makes us strong, man. When we don't give up, when we go through trials, that's what builds strength, my friend. And we're with you, Luke. We're fighting with you, man. And just like these guys we watch in the ring, man, continue to fight till that last bell, brother. All right. And subscribe to my guy, man. His channel is growing tremendously, man. He just started his channel this year, man. He's already at 600 subscribers. This guy is killing the game.
We don't like, we're the cool guy channel. So we're not even promoting. We're the cool guy channel. But I appreciate being on and the panel, and I appreciate it, man. I'm about to sign off, but
me too, man.
Thank you guys for being on. You will never know how much this meant to me tonight doing this. It really means a lot, and I hope I brought a good boxing talk to your evening, and I hope it meant a lot.
It sure did, Luke, and it's always good talking with you, my man. Thank you for being here. And I also want to say thank you to my man Joseph Haran, who's having some Wi-Fi issues. That's all good, you know. Again, check me out Thursday night, guys, for the live breakdown and film study between Emmanuel El Vaquero Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez. It's going to be a good one, guys. I hope you guys will be there. And again, I'll be open with the phone lines if anybody wants to take calls and give me their prediction, who they think is going to win. If you think I'm wrong, you tell me, G-Funk, you're wrong on this one. If you agree with me, you can tell me that as well. I appreciate all input, guys. That's it, guys. Take care. We are out of here. We'll see you on the next one.